Hey there, this is Bassoon Dan. Recently, I've had one of my shorts take off in terms of views here, so I wanted to make a nice little director's cut, director's commentary of my reed making short. So here we go. So here are all my tools I need for this process. You can take a look and pause here if you want. I bought my cane from bartoncane.com. Shout out to them. I'm using Rigati cane, right? And Rigati is just like the name, the brand of the cane. I'm using a Hertzberg shape, so you'll hear me reference it as Rigati Hertzberg cane. Now, a little bit of movie magic here. So this whole process of soaking cane takes at least 24 hours because you want the cane to soak all the way through and sink to the bottom of the jar. So right now I'm taking this gouge shaped and profiled cane, GSP cane, and I'm going to score it manually by hand using my X-Acto knife. Now, the cane that I bought already has scoring marks on them. Right now, what I'm doing is just I'm reinforcing these score lines with my X-Acto knife and maybe making some extra lines just in case. So right now, I'm folding my cane over my ruler just to make sure that I don't split it. Now, the middle piece of the cane is the thinnest part, so if you try to fold it by hand here, you run a good chance of breaking it in half, which I've done many times. So earlier on, you saw me cut or trim the ends of this piece of cane. The reason why I did that is because the piece of cane was a little bit too long for my liking. From the fold of the cane to the end of the cane, I like to have it 2 5/16 of an inch. So right now I'm taking my X-Acto knife and I'm cutting through the cane and only through the end part of the cane here. This is something I personally like to do as it helps me and it helps with the forming process. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. It's just something that I picked up along the way. So right now I'm using some brass wire to help with the next part of reed making, the forming process. And this is to help retain the roundness of the shape right before I put in the forming pin. Usually the industry standard is 22 gauge brass wire. I like to use 21 gauge. It's a little bit thicker and I usually get a little bit better results, but I go back and forth between this all the time. So right now I'm cutting a piece of twine and this is going to help me with the forming process. This is known as mummifying the reed. So if you hear somebody refer to it as a reed mummy or just making a mummy, this is what they mean. And the whole purpose of having the piece of twine around the reed is to make sure that it retains its roundness as the reed dries over time. So before shoving this forming pin into the reed, I like to soak the reed to make sure that it is wet and malleable, because you don't want it to crack during this process. So the forming pins I'm using are from Barrick-Stees. Shout out to Barrick-Stees. I usually like his forming pins more because they have like a little collar on it, so it helps me become more consistent with this process. Now, I'm going to take this pin and I'm going to shove it into the bottom part of the reed here. Now, in the professional bassoon world, this is known as the reed bussy. So we all take a deep breath, we say a prayer, and we do this. Good. And then after that, I like to take my pliers and I crimp the bottom part of the reed here. This is to reinforce the roundness of the throats of the bassoon reed. Now, generally, people like to leave these for at least 1 week. You can leave it for longer, you can leave it for a little bit shorter. Usually, you would want to wait for the piece of cane to dry out 100% before you move on to this next part here. There's also like a myth that says that the longer you leave it on the drying rack, the drying pin here, the better the reed will be. And honestly, I don't really believe in that, but to each their own. So after your reed has dried out for an indefinite amount of time, we move on to part 2 of reed making, which is making the reed blank. So we're gonna need a couple things here. First things first, we're going to bevel the reed, and so we'll need a piece of sandpaper, usually a fine piece of sandpaper. I think I'm using 500 grit sandpaper in this video. Oh, by the way, here, so unwrapping the money is one of the most satisfying parts of reed making, so this is one of my favorite parts here for sure. I've had people ask me, so when you bevel, what do you do with the first wire? And it's a very easy answer. You just throw it away. Take it off, throw it away. Brass wire is like maybe half a cent, so you just put on another one. So right now, I put it in the captions here, but the whole pros of beveling is to create a better seal, right? To prevent leaks in the reed and to create a better tip opening. So after I finish beveling, I like to put on the original first wire from before using a brand new piece of wire. After that, I put on the third wire, so the bottommost wire here, and notice that this orientation is the exact same as the first wire. And then I put on the middle wire, or the second wire. Notice that the orientation of this is 180 degrees off of the first and third wire. This is on purpose, and this is to alleviate tension from the reed in general. After doing all of that, I need to put on some kind of sealant here. I didn't record it, but usually people like to use nail polish, or some people like to use Duco cement or any kind of other rubber cement alternative. Right now I'm reaming the reed, basically just using this fancy spiral reamer to remove cane from the inside part of the reed so that it'll fit on my bocal so that it doesn't fall off while I'm playing. So after all of that is done, we finally get to soak our reed blank here, and we move on to part 3 of reed making, which means we clip the tip and we actually get down to the nitty gritty and scraping and whittling, or whatever you want to call it here. So I have my fancy Rieger tip cutter here and my razor blade. We're going to use the razor blade later to profile the tip, and you'll see what I mean here in just a bit. So I'm going to let this reed blank soak for a little bit. And I'm going to place down the wires here so that it'll fit on my tip cutter nice and easy. And I'm going to cut it about 28 millimeters from the top wire here. Now, a little pro trick that I like to do is that I like to leave it a little bit longer than 28 millimeters, because the golden rule of reed making here is that you can always remove more cane. You can't put it back on. So as I'm working on reeds, I always think of the least riskiest move or action I need to do to the riskiest. And the riskiest is always removing a lot of cane. So you just saw me use a razor blade to profile the tip of this reed. And I don't have enough time in this video to explain all the intricacies of reed making from day one or what to do here. So I'm going to keep it very brief. You want the thinnest part of the reed to be the very tip here, especially the corners of the tip, and you want the thickest part to be in the middle part at the base of the reed. Your goal is to create an even taper from the very tip, the thinnest part of the reed, all the way to the thickest part of the reed. And the more even that it is, the better your reed will become. And you have to do this on both sides of the reed, as it is a double reed. This whole process takes quite a bit here, and for this exact video, I think I had over 15 uninterrupted minutes of just scraping and playing, scraping and playing. So the sounds you hear at the very end of that short is me at the very end of that scraping session. Once I am fully satisfied with this day one scrape of this reed, I like to decorate it. Now, a lot of people like to use thread, right, and make like the quote-unquote turban shape of whatever reed that you're using. But I like to use hot glue here for a number of reasons. Number one, it's way easier. It's way easier compared to thread. Thread is a little bit more time consuming, and honestly, I don't have the patience for it. I make a lot of reeds, so I use hot glue, and I just like the way it looks. There's a certain charm to it for sure. Now, if I'm not using the reed for myself, I like to sell them to my current students and only my current students. Sorry everybody, I don't sell my reeds publicly. So if they don't have a reed case, I like to give it to them in this reed tube or reed container. You can get this on like any double reed website. I think I got mine from Forest Music. I use a hole puncher to create some ventilation holes so that it has an airflow throughout the reed. Now, I didn't record this in this video, but I do disinfect the reed in some Listerine and water so that it kills the germs and that I don't infect my students with whatever illnesses I may or may not have. And yeah, that's the whole process of making a reed here. Please note, this is not the only way to make bassoon reeds. Every single reed maker will have a different process, some of which are similar, some of which are not. So I don't claim to be like the master reed maker or whatever, but I just wanted to break down my own process that works for me. If you like this content, please leave a like and subscribe down below. Comment down below on what you liked or what you didn't like. And as always, thank you for watching.